What's up, everybody? How's it going? How's it going? How you doing? It's Friday. You know what that means? It means it's time to stream. I hope you had a good week. I know it's been a while since we've live streamed. We did skip last Friday. I was kind of sunburnt and toasted, so I didn't feel like streaming that day. But we are back this week. What do I want? Some Canadian dry. Canada Dry Fruit Splash Cherry Ginger Ale. Shit's pretty good. Zero sugar, of course. Let's see, what's been going on with me? Yeah, so there was 4th of July. 4th of July was pretty good. I stayed out I stayed outside in the sun and I forgot my sunscreen, so that's why I got a little burnt. That weekend, I walked to the grocery store to go on a little walkie poo, and I slipped on some asphalt, and I gouged the ever-living hell out of my knee. There's a quarter size, missing amount of flesh from my knee that I've been dealing with for 2 weeks that still hasn't healed. That felt good. What else is happening? Not much. I've been pretty lazy, honestly. Just kind of enjoying my summer before school starts. Oh, yeah, when I fell down, I fell down so hard, I instantly was 72. It was just straight up just help me, I've fallen, and I can't get up. It was so horrible. There was blood running down my leg. It was intense. It was bad. I was and it didn't seem like that bad of a fall. It was just kind of ah! And then I got up and I'm like, oh, my soul left my body. All right, we don't need any more music. Thank you, Miss Music. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about Biden. I don't know why I'm waving Neosporin around. It's for my knee. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about, we're just gonna, I don't know, bitch about Biden for a day, I guess. Because there's a lot going on. Plus, now that we're almost to November, I have no idea what my hair is doing today. Stop getting distracted, Jan. Okay. Since we're close to the election, in November, things are gonna be pretty, I don't know, election heavy. Unfortunately, I don't really like talking about this crap. I mean, I will. It's just, I don't know. So disappointing. It's this is the fate of humanity, essentially, in America going on here. And none of the options are good. The last time we live streamed, we covered the presidential debate. That was such a joke. And surprisingly, it was so funny because they were we live stream on Friday, Saturday. I think it was Sunday. I just took a look at because I used to have it to where I had to approve all comments before they go through. Just because I had some weird, crazy situation with some stalker people that wouldn't leave me alone. But I think that's died down now. But so I've opened it back up again, but when I went to glance at the comments for last stream, usually I'll get 1 or 2 comments, by people who missed it or watching the replay. I don't know why YouTube decided to, but YouTube decided to decided it was good for why, I don't know, and started pushing it out to a bunch of MAGA Trump loving dudes. And I'm the comments are rolling in. It was kind of a phenomena. It didn't go viral per se, but the amount of fucking comments that I had on that stream, and so many butthurt people. And people I don't think really paid attention, because at the beginning of the whole debate, I'm I don't like either of these candidates. But then some people are you just love Biden. And it's no. So I want to like look over some of the comments. I did respond to a few, like, because I'm a messy bitch, so I was just being catty and trollish. But some of them, I don't know. It was kind of weird. Let me see. Go look at that. The comments for that. There's like, I don't know, like something like 70 comments on there. It was really odd. And even there was some people who were like, "Why am I being shown this?" It's like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Thank you though. Really butthurt people. It's gonna be funny. Live. Go to the live. Let's see. Save the debate. Going here, computer acting slowly. Shut up. Shut up, Jan. Sorry. I think this one's... No. I just looked at the first comment. That's so funny. Let's see. Viewing... You know what? Before we get into this, though, let me say hello to you beautiful people of the thing. Hello, Josh Mason. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Mac. Good to see you. Angelica. Always a pleasure. Serafina, hello. Hello, hello. David, hello. Heretical Response, hello. Specs, good to see you. Brent, hello. Scrolling up. Christopher Smith, hello. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Good to have the fam back. Yeah, it was really weird because like the last 2 weeks ago when we live stream and we covered the debate, like we don't typically have a troll problem in chat. Like occasionally we get some shit going on here and we're like, and then it goes away. So like the chat was pretty chill, but like it was just so funny. I just went to check the comments a couple of days after the stream, like the following Sunday, and I'm like, holy shit, there's like 50 comments from like, I don't know. It's kind of nauseating, but I just wanted to look at some of them and laugh because it's really entertaining. Because it's like the live stream didn't go. I don't think it was like viral, but I mean, it's like, yeah, it kind of shot up there. I think it's got looking now just over 2,000 views, which is a lot for my tiny little thing. Hey, Cassie! Cassie's here, one of our beautiful moderators. Good to see ya. The comments on the last stream are ridiculous. I know, I went to Cassie. I'm like, Cassie, what's happening? Like, I struck a nerve, I guess. I don't know. I guess probably because you can't really leave comments and stuff. I don't know if any of the YouTube channels that show the entire full, like the actual main news media, like YouTube outlets, like I don't know if they allow comments or not during the stream. So I almost felt like it was less, obviously it wasn't personal. Well, it's hard to take it personally because it's like, I don't know these people, they don't know me, but it's like, I'm like, what did I do? And I think it's just, they just had a moment to like vent what they really wanted to say, but they can't get it in front of anybody's eyes. That's important. So they're like, we'll just go in this random YouTuber thing and do that. The bots are programmed and ready to go. All right, let's see. Let's take a look at what we got here. Let's see. Yeah, so over just 2,000 views, we got like 53 likes. Like, okay, it's chunky. Oh, look at me. Look at my face. I'm about to serenade to you. Look at that fucking expression on my face. It's like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm gonna lay you down by the fire, woman. I wanna kiss you all over again, till the night closes in. So, top comment, this reaction vid sucks. Who's liking these? Let's see. Like, this was, like, all the comments are just like, wah, wah, wah. Let's see. This person says, okay, I'm a few minutes into watching you in the debate, and you have no clue about what the truth is. About what? I mean, it's so funny to read these now because it's like 2 weeks after the fact, and I'm just like, that was forever ago, so I don't even know what the fact... He never said drink bleach. That was fact-checked on CNN immediately after the debate. It's false. More people did die from COVID, if you believe the numbers, under Biden than Trump. That's just... Oh, we're talking about COVID stuff. I'm about to turn this off, but I figured I'd probably... Oh, I figure you probably believe that he said there were fine people on both sides of the Charlottesville, including neo-Nazis and KKK. He never said that either. Also fact-checked as false. Basically, get your head out of your rear and quit believing MSM or leftist nutbag bubble. You need it. I'm not a leftist, and what the fuck is MSN? These things definitely lose their luster after a couple weeks. Let's see. You realize many homeless people... Okay, going on something about that. Most people who take it and don't OD... Oh, I guess they're talking about fentanyl here. But, like, look at these freaking, like, essays. Like, what? Like, this isn't about me. They just want to vent something. Talking about the economy. Thanks for the vid. I respect the work. Trump was great. He let Biden give your respect to YouTube. They brought me here. Oh, I guess. Thank you. I guess. I don't need to thank YouTube for your comment, Greg. Trump, the motherfucker, gave me more money in my pocket compared to Biden. Trump 2024. Okay, so we can see. Okay, and Trump. I don't know why YouTube was like, hey, you know who would really enjoy this material? You know who would really enjoy, like, Jan Daemon just casually watching the reacting to the debate? Trump people. Let's see. How did this young woman end up in my recommendations? Oddly, I normally watch unhinged leftists when they're trying to debate political policy with normal people. I watch for the humor. Okay, great. I don't know who said that. I'm wondering too, yeah, and here's the thing. Like, we're all confused. Here are people talking about, like, why is this recommended? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm being recommended to you. I am also baffled. Let's see. Bye-bye, Brandon. Let's see. Funny to hear a Democrat say it's a good thing to have microphones turned off so Biden can speak uninterrupted. Wait, who's the Democrat? Because I'm not. Read more. Biden cannot make a statement without muttering to himself. Okay. Cope and seethe, darling. Oh, this is one I responded to. It's like, cope and seethe, darling. And I'm like, about what? Oh, he responded. He says, on a good day, you look like Rosie O'Donnell on her worst day. Dang, dude. He still didn't answer my question, though. About what? What am I coping and seething about? Rosie O'Donnell? Lady, you are too far gone. You don't know shit, but your expectation flying high. Have a look at yourself. Please get educated about politic. Trump 2024. Okay. I better get myself educated about politic. See. Oh, I think this guy was talking about the tax bracket, because I was saying, like, the tax bracket, like, went from, like, you had to earn, like, 20 something, like, roughly, like, $20,000 before you would get taxed. Like, you would have to, like, pay taxes for, like, just selling shit, and they dropped it all the way down to, like, something like $600. And I was like, now you have, and then I just threw out an example, like, you're getting taxed for selling, like, grandpa's old baseball cards. And so this guy is responding with, baseball cards have always been taxed, bruh. If you sell them on eBay, there are plenty of trading posts that will pay you cash to avoid tax. Well, no shit, Sherlock. I was in the lower caste, blah, 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 but Trump were admitting their paychecks. So, your friends are... I don't care about your friends that make $30K a year. Like, I really don't. The rich pay more than their fair share. No... No, that's the funniest shit I've read. The rich pay more than their fair share. 56% of your income is insane, no matter how rich you are. I think they'd be really upset to hear about my ideas about 100% inheritance tax for billionaires. Let's see. Biden should suck up his ego and step down. Okay. Oh, this is why you are a useless waste of space on YouTube, and that's saying a lot. And what did I say? Oh, I just gave a kissy face. Hey, there's 2 replies. Who else replied? I can't see it. They probably blocked me. Losers. The person with a unicorn support buddy, no politics. Yo. First of all, I never actually brought Loppy out during that thing, even though I wanted to. Second of all, say what you want about me, and I don't think you really said anything against Loppy. But you know what? I'm telling you now, trolls. Say what you want about me. Don't you ever fucking insult Loppy. Okay? Heads will roll. There will be executions. Okay. So, wow, what a stupid it or there or whatever you... What are you talking about? What a stupid it... What is stupid? Oh, they're calling me it. Oh. I love it when these people are like... They act like saying they is so complicated. They overcomplicate something so simple and then they act like you do it. Let's see. Idiot commentary. I won't ever return. I am deleting your channel from my life. I'm so sad. What did I say? You're welcome. Let's see. Not the way to handle it. When they are wrong, correct them with facts. They can't disapprove with it. I'm not doing... Oh, he's talking to them. He's talking to this person. He's not really defending me. When they're wrong, correct them with facts. They can't disapprove. First of all, you know what's so funny? I was just like chilling, just reacting to that whole presidential debate. I'm not a person who's teaching you about politics. Like, I'm not a news source. How'd the debate go for Brandon? Let's see. Biden has been in the media for the past 50 years. What do you mean he's not media trained? Like, oh, this person's upset that I'm talking about Biden. Because Biden, it doesn't matter if he's been in the media for the past 50 years. In comparison to Trump, like, Biden does suck in front of the camera. I'm sorry, he fucking sucks. He's boring. Let's see, don't vote for either of them? Okay. Something about Trump. Let's see, let's not pretend. Okay. Yeah, and people are just, like, sitting here, just, like, talking about this shit. It's like, I'm not gonna fucking respond to this. Like, this is, like, a phenomena. This guy is, like, way into stuff. I don't know. Yeah, they're arguing with each other. Oh, you're mad Trump points out illegals are taking jobs from black people? Jesus Christ. Oh, right. Yeah, because I'm just, like, right when Trump was like, hey... all the immigrants are going to come and take black jobs. And that's why I'm just like, what is a black job? It's like, this person, what is it? A job that's dominated by the black community? But what is that? What is that? That makes no... Chicago's population is mostly black. Illegal immigrants have taken over Chicago. That still does not define what the fuck is a black job? It doesn't make any sense. What the fuck is a black job? Does anybody know? Oh, that's right. I found something on Twitter that, like, addressed that. And it kind of, like, proved the point. Let's see, where is it? On Twitter. Did I bookmark it? I hope I did. That just sounds so stupid. Okay, this person says, any entry-level job that would have likely went to a black person, but instead went to an... You don't know what that is! An entry-level job? How do you know it would have... Okay, I walk into a place, I say, excuse me, can I apply for a black job? What the fuck is that? How do you specifically go for a black job? And what does that imply when you try to define what that is? Think about it. Carefully. Slowly. Did I save that thing about black jobs? Because it was, like, so fucking funny and it totally proved my point. Yes! Oh, fuck yeah. Okay, here. What is a black job? A black... yeah, entry level... Anybody can have an entry level job. What the fuck does that mean? That there is no... Okay. Think about a job that is specifically designed for black people. And get very concerned with what the fuck that entails. Because the answers aren't going to be that great. Well, let's see. This guy's going around asking black men what they think a black job is. And this, I think, I'm like this, I was laughing. I saw this one morning. I'm like, this perfectly illustrates my point of what the fuck is a black job.
Excuse me, sir. What's a black job?
It's complicated. A job done by a majority of African men.
What do you do?
I'm an orthopedic surgeon.
Sir?
He's an orthopedic surgeon.
What's a black job?
Black job is a contractor and a renewable energy developer.
Oh, that's what you do?
That's what I do.
He's a
That's
contractor.
black job. Thank you. Hold on a second.
So, man,
What's a black job?
designing products for a multi-billion-dollar bank.
Designing
Wow.
products
Thank you,
for a
brother.
multi-million dollar bank.
How you doing? Can I ask
That's
you
a black
question?
job?
Yes, sir.
What's a black job?
Working for myself. That's a black job.
It's a really low video.
Sir,
Yeah.
can I ask you, would you happen to know what a black job is?
Black job? I don't know what that is.
He doesn't know what it is.
You don't know what that is?
What's a black job? He
What do you
doesn't
do?
know.
I'm a VP of a biotech company.
He's a VP of a
Right.
biotech company.
Could that be a black job, in your opinion?
It is black job.
Got it.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. What's a black job?
I don't know.
Well, what do you do?
I'm the CEO of a food company.
Wow. What
He's
kind
the
of food?
CEO of a food
All
company.
kinds.
That's incredible. Hold on, sir. Sir, let me talk to you. What's a black job?
I don't know.
What do you do?
I'm a lawyer and I'm a real estate developer.
Hey, brother, can I ask you a question? What's a black job?
A landlord and a retired individual.
Thank you, my brother. Hey, man, can I ask you a question? What's a black job?
Black job, I don't know, managing partner at a law firm, centuries old.
Wow, that's what you do?
That's what they say I do. That's what my paycheck says.
Excuse me, sir. Let me ask you a question. What's a black job?
Black job.
Caddying for you? What do you do, sir?
I got a black job as a CEO
Of what?
of four companies. Yeah, media companies, advertising, marketing, film. You know, that's good. That's a good black job.
Wow, thank you.
The answer to what is a black job is any job that's done by a black person. There's no specific job type position that is like you would say is a black job. Entry level jobs, anybody can get an entry level job. It's you don't define it as a black job. For Trump to say immigrants are coming after black jobs is insane. Is insane. The way he worded it is insane, and the fact that this person's getting so pissed at it. Let's see. Anyways, moving on. Let's see. It's sad what they are doing to Biden, but please let him run. Easy win for Trump. Whatever. You can call him an orange oaf, but he's right. Some states some states say after a baby is born, the mother can kill the baby so no one else can adopt a healthy newborn child. The mother just wants it dead. You agree? No. You dumbass. You buffoon. You idiot. You numbskull. You dunce cap. Let's see. If you still don't think Joe Biden has dementia now, you should probably see a specialist. Well, Joe Biden is off his fucking rocker. Somebody saying nice things. Says, my first time here and I'm enjoying it. Thank you. Let's see. I'm interested in what the Neogenian solution to the environmental issues is. I don't know. Don't fucking destroy the planet. Let's see. Oh, this one. This guy, he's like, I watched the replay. I had to make several reports to YouTube regarding your misinformation and one instance of racist comments regarding Trump going after interracial marriage, which is racist and untrue. I'm Australian, and I don't have a dog in this fight. The information you handed out to your viewers was dangerously incorrect, and I would recommend you either start reading or fact-checking. I barely touched on, like, Project 2025 shit, and I don't know if interracial marriage was mentioned in Project 2025, but pretty much my point is like we're going down the rabbit hole of like it's not just like banning trans healthcare, it's also banning contraceptives. They're gonna try and ban like same-sex marriage, restore the family unit, and I'm like, I bet your ass interracial marriage will be on there too. So I don't know how that's being construed as I love how they're like, I'm Australian and I don't like, why are you saying anything then? And all I responded with was, okay, Karen. And this guy's like, the only Karen here is you. I'm not reporting. And where did those reports go? Nowhere. Also, I'm not a news outlet. If you, like, I don't know, go watch the news. Something Trump, wanting for Trump to win. Stuff, blee blah blue. It just keeps going. It's so weird. I'm like, the shit I do is so, like, I'm such a small-time YouTuber. It was so funny to wake up and I'm like, why is there, like, 70 comments from, like, butthurt people? Let's see, there's MC Heavysat. Hello. This person likes my YouTube. That's great. I don't know. Wait, what about Christofascists? That's a made-up word? All words are made up. Interracial marriage banned? Sorry, but you were very... I love how they're taking me like I'm a fucking news outlet. If I could turn back time, if I could find a way, I'd take back all the things that hurt you, and you'd stay. Anyways, so moving on. I'm gonna watch this video released like 4 months ago, just a simple history of Joe Biden. I don't know who John Coogan is. I have no fucking idea. I'm assuming this is just generic information. And then after that, we're gonna start just to like refresh us about Biden, you know. And then we're gonna watch the latest Biden news conference and maybe take a look at these articles. One where like people are talking about like Democrats want Biden to go, and then even having Democratic donors holding back Democrats. They're so self-righteous. They always virtue signal and then they never do what they say they're gonna do. Let's see. Okay. Turn on
primaries, and he was miles behind.
We took a gut punch in Iowa. The whole process took a gut punch.
His campaign was already counting how much money it needed to pay out staffers when he dropped out. Biden had been here before. In 1987,
there will be other presidential campaigns.
2007, 2015. Joe Biden needed a miracle, and he got one in South Carolina.
I know Joe. We know Joe. But most importantly, Joe knows us.
I apologize in advance for my sniffling and snorting. My allergies have been like totally bad today. I'm on 2 different like allergy medications at once. So my brain's a little bit of a balloon. I think everybody's regretting fronting Biden at the moment. Also, I heard some people saying like Democrats fronted Biden because they were trying to get rid of Bernie.
Thanks to that endorsement from Congressman James Clyburn, Biden won.
Expanding the hellos, I can't believe the hate. See, I don't think it's hate. I think it's just, I don't really take it as hate. I think they were just wanting a moment to express. Except for that one guy who was just straight up like, this is the worst thing ever and I'm leaving. Why would you Why would you comment that? I don't like your channel and I think you're stupid. I'm leaving. It's like, okay. Thank you. Love you. Kisses. Hugs. presents.
In the South Carolina primary in a landslide. 3 days after South Carolina, he dominated Super Tuesday. He went from being on the verge of dropping out to being the nominee in less than a week. Just 8 months after that fateful day, Joe Biden was elected president. It was the culmination of a journey that spanned more than 50 years, one that's included unspeakable.
But is it me, or just like, have I not paid attention? Because Biden, like at the beginning of the presidency, just seemed like a little bit more coherent than now. Like something over the 4 years like happened. I don't know.
Tragedy and bitter disappointment. So, who is Joe Biden? How did he go from being the youngest senator to the oldest president? In this video, the many lives of Joe Biden.
I don't know, coming from growing up in the Mormon church, I'm used to like leaders being like Methuselah age. Like I think the current Mormon church president is like fucking literally like 99. I'm not even joking. Like the prophets for the Mormon church keep getting older and older. At this point, they just as well dig up Joseph Smith from the grave and just puppet his corpse at the podium. Like those people are that old. I'm an ex-Mormon, by the way. I don't have anything to do with that anymore.
Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. was born to Jean and Joseph Sr. on November 20th, 1942 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Joe's childhood wasn't always easy, but it was happy. But there was just one thing he had but didn't want. One day in middle school, Joe was asked to read a story aloud to the class. Instead of supporting him, his teacher mocked him. She imitated his stutter. Joe could hide his self-consciousness about lots of things, but not that. Kids at school called him Dash because it sounded like he was talking in Morse code. Instead of seeing the young man, they just saw someone to make fun of. It ate him up inside.
I didn't
Eventually,
know that.
Joe beat his stutter by reciting passages from literature and learning to anticipate what people would ask before they did it, so he could get in and ask them about it first. Great practice for his future career. Joe beat his stutter, but he'd never forget the shame and embarrassment it caused him. It established a dominant theme in his life, a belief that he didn't get the respect he deserved. After high school, Biden went to the University of Delaware. He played football, worked as a lifeguard, and then in his junior year, Joe met a girl. Her name was Nelia Hunter, and within a year, they were married. Now that he had a wife, it was time for Joe to get serious. He went to law school. But it was a disaster. He plagiarized a law review article for a paper, and in order to get out of repeating the class, Joe said he didn't know how to do proper citations because he wasn't in the class often enough to learn. In the end, Joe scraped through. He graduated 76th in a class of 85. It was a forgettable beginning to what looked like it was going to be a forgettable career. Joe and Nelia moved to the suburbs. They had a baby who was named after his father, but who everyone called Bo. Then they had another boy, Hunter, and a girl, Naomi. It looked like Joe's life was laid out in front of him. Decades of boring middle-class life awaited. But behind the bland exterior was a burning ambition to be more than just a lawyer. The first time he met Nelia's mom, he told her that one day he'd be president. He worshipped the Kennedys. So in 1972, when he was just 29, he took the first step toward that goal and ran for US Senate. The odds were stacked against him. The incumbent, Caleb Boggs, was a veteran and a popular reformer governor. How could Joe Biden, who only ran because more serious candidates thought that they had no chance of winning, even put up a fight? Despite the long odds, Biden had two things working in his favor. The first is that Boggs didn't want to run again. Richard Nixon had personally come down to Delaware to beg him. Boggs relented, but said he wouldn't campaign very hard. He didn't think he needed to. Joe Biden's second advantage was his youth. Biden crisscrossed the state, usually with Nelia and the kids by his side, and his campaign ran newspaper ads with slogans about issues that resonated with the public. Caleb Boggs' generation dreamed of conquering polio. Joe Biden's generation dreams of conquering heroin. The message was clear. Boggs was the past, Biden was the future. But the future could be scary, so Biden searched for the center ground. He opposed marijuana legalization, but said police should focus more on heroin. He was against the Vietnam War, but opposed amnesty for draft dodgers. And most controversially, Biden also opposed busing, the practice of transporting students to schools outside of their local districts to make schools more racially diverse. Not everyone liked the strategy. One local column said that in November, you can either vote for the oldest young Democrat or the youngest old Republican. But it worked. On election Election Day, Richard Nixon won the state of Delaware by 20 points. And in a major upset, Joe Biden beat Caleb Boggs by 3,000
I was gonna say,
votes.
didn't
The young
Biden dodge the
unknown
draft?
who had
What
to
the fuck
wait
did he
until
give a shit?
after the election to turn old enough to actually be allowed to serve in the Senate had won an unwinnable race. But then, less than a month after Joe Biden achieved his biggest triumph, he'd suffer his biggest tragedy.
You can't find heroin anymore. It's all fentanyl. I couldn't find heroin to begin with, so I'm not going to find fentanyl.
You knew. You just felt it in your bones. Something bad happened. And I knew. I don't know how I knew. But the call said my wife was dead.
I didn't
My
know
daughter was
that.
dead.
I mean,
and I wasn't sure
obviously,
how my sons were going to make
not
it.
Jill
For the first
Biden.
time in my life, I understood how someone could consciously decide to commit suicide. Not because they were deranged, not because they were nuts, because they'd been to the top of the mountain and they just knew in their heart they'd never get there again. There will come a day, I promise you, and you parents as well, when the thought of your son or daughter, or your husband or wife, brings a smile to your lips before it brings a tear to your eye.
For years, Biden would talk about how the driver who killed his first wife and baby daughter drank his lunch on that fateful day. But as much as he wanted it to be true, because maybe it would allow him to make some kind of sense out of what happened, it wasn't. It was just a terrible tragedy. Biden didn't know how he could go on. He wanted to resign, but he was worried about what would happen to Bo and Hunter if they saw their dad swallowed up by grief. So he agreed to stick it out for 6 months and was sworn in as a US Senator beside Bo's hospital bed. And when it was time to go to Washington, he did it his way. For the next 36 years, until he became vice president, he commuted between Washington and Delaware so he could be home every night. Biden valued his relationships with his family above everything else, and he approached his new job with the same mindset. In a town full of Ivy League graduates, he wasn't going to win on raw brain power, but he could win by making friends. Remember, this is a guy who, during his Senate campaign, was called the youngest old Republican. Compromise wasn't a bad thing. It was the way to actually get things done. But this created a dilemma. Could Joe Biden be the ultimate Washington insider while also being a total outsider? Could he afford to skip the fancy cocktail parties so he could tuck his boys into bed at night? He didn't know, but he knew he wanted to try. Because for Biden, relationships were an anchor in deeply uncertain times. Not only was he processing a huge amount of grief, but he arrived in Washington during a pivotal moment in the world order.
Will be out of Vietnam by the end of June.
About 25 seconds.
What a time to be
Now
alive.
you come to me and you say, Don Corleone, and give me justice.
Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
I know full well the responsibilities that await me as I enter the door of number 10.
The Watergate
So much for Roe v. Wade.
Wide open today.
The 1970s was a decade of the energy crisis, stagflation, labor mutiny, urban decay, and a Cold War that looked like it might get hot. It seemed like every night Americans watched stories about riots, strikes, and serial killers. Lines for gas stretched for miles. Crisis at home threatened the national security of the US and its allies. Against this backdrop, Joe Biden kept his head down and worked hard on small things that people cared about, like consumer protection, crime, and campaign finance reform. He made friends on both sides of the aisle. Segregationists, Southern Democrats, liberals, and pro-business Republicans all found they could work with him. That determination to always find common ground is the reason why, less than 3 years after he was elected, Joe Biden was appointed to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It was a big step up in terms of prestige and influence. All of a sudden, Joe Biden was one of the leading voices in Washington when it came to foreign policy. His actual beliefs were highly conventional. He thought the United States was the world's greatest force for good, and that communism was the biggest threat to freedom. But at the same time, he thought the US and Soviet Union should find common ground on important issues like arms control. In an unstable era, Biden's predictability was a feature, not a bug. But not all the change that was happening was bad. 2.5 years after his wife's death, Joe's brother set him up on a date with Jill Jacobs, a senior studying English at the University of Delaware. Despite a 9-year age gap, the two hit it off.
Ew.
Jill was fascinated by the young senator who was nothing like the guys she was used to dating. After their first date, she told her mom that she'd finally met a gentleman. Now that they were older, Bo and Hunter started asking their dad if he was ever going to get married again. Jill didn't say yes the first time Joe asked her, but eventually Jill and Joe got married in June of 1977. After a short honeymoon, it was back to work. Joe had an election to win. It turned out that winning was much easier the second time. This time around, Biden won nearly 60% of the votes and every single county. With the confidence that only winning re-election can bring, Biden began playing a leading role on the Foreign Relations Committee. He flew to Moscow to try and save the SALT II arms control treaty, which was on the verge of collapse. As the 1980s dawned, Joe Biden was finally getting the respect he thought he deserved, and the good news kept coming. In 1981, after Ronald Reagan was elected president, Biden was appointed to the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was another big promotion. The Judiciary Committee oversees the Department of Justice and considers nominations for the Supreme Court. Helped by his role on the Judiciary Committee, Biden's public profile went to the next level. He went to some of the cocktail parties he'd avoided in earlier years and became active on the Democratic Party's speaking circuit. And after he became chair of the Judiciary Committee, an idea started circulating inside Joe Biden's mind. By now, he'd been a senator for 15 years. He was respected by Democrats and Republicans alike. It was now time, Biden believed, to pursue the dream he told Nelia's mom about. It was time to run for president.
Oh, this is so long.
In a crowded field, Joe Biden looked like one of the strongest candidates for the presidential nomination of a Democratic Party that was desperate to win back the White House after 8 years of Ronald Reagan. He seemed to tick all the boxes.
Good old
He was
Reagan.
a high-profile senator who knew how to raise money. Baby boomers
Pretty
saw
much everything
reasonable,
that's shitty
moderate
now
young
in America is
professionals
because
saw
of
a
Reagan.
statesman, and Americans saw someone who survived tragedy.
What a
Biden
time.
announced his candidacy in June of 1987 at the Wilmington train station.
So it's your help that I seek first. As today, I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
In language that was deliberately crafted to remind people of John F. Kennedy, he said that it was time to rekindle the fire of idealism in our society. The campaign announcement was as good as it ever got. Biden couldn't decide on a single campaign message. Was he the voice of a new generation, like JFK? A foreign policy expert? Environmentalist? Educator? He was being pulled in too many different directions at once, and it wouldn't take long for him to crack under the pressure.
What law school did you attend? And where did you place in that class? And the other question is...
I think I probably have a much higher IQ than you do.
The death blow for Biden's campaign came when he gave a speech that was plagiarized from the UK Labour Party leader.
My mistake.
From there, things quickly unraveled. The media and Biden's candidates for the nomination found examples of him reusing passages from speeches given by JFK and Robert Kennedy.
I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote.
They discovered his plagiarism incident from law school.
I mean,
if Biden had been...
in the beginning of this, they're talking about how Biden had like a speech issue and like he kind of just like learned ways to deal with that. It would make fucking sense that he steals speech bits from other people, such as Kennedy.
Leading the polls, it wouldn't have mattered so much, but he was already floundering. And these new controversies proved too much. They were taking a toll on his health, his reputation, and his family. Barely 4 months after he joined the race, he pulled out. Biden's failed presidential campaign was deeply embarrassing. It laid bare all his weaknesses, his arrogance, his insecurities. But here's the twist. That disastrous campaign, it probably saved his life. Less than 4 months after he withdrew from the race, Biden woke up on the floor of his hotel room. He'd been unconscious for 5 hours, couldn't move his legs. Those headaches he'd fed with Tylenol on the campaign trail had turned into a brain aneurysm. Biden's prognosis was initially
I didn't know
so
that
bleak
either.
that a priest arrived to
explains
deliver
a
the
lot.
last rites before Jill even made it to the hospital. It took months of surgeries, complications, and even a second aneurysm until Biden recovered. It was the price he paid for months of campaigning while maintaining his Senate duties. But ironically, had he been a better presidential candidate in 1987, he probably wouldn't be alive to be president today. When he returned to the Senate, Joe Biden told the first crowd he saw that he'd been given a second chance at life. He planned to take it. After the embarrassment of his presidential bid and his near-death experience, Biden needed to rebuild his reputation. It wouldn't take long for an opportunity to come up. In 1991, President George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to replace Thurgood Marshall, the first African-American Supreme Court justice.
Clarence Thomas, seasoned now by more experience on the bench, fits my description of the best man at the right time.
The nomination process was controversial right from the start. Thomas was a staunch conservative, especially on hot-button issues like abortion, and women's groups and civil rights organizations didn't want him on the court.
If that's when the clone stepped in, it's like, that's a bad clone. You need to get a different one. That is not the good clone. You do not use the good clone there. Is it me or are things lagging a bit? Oh well.
Court. And then everything blew up. An FBI report which detailed sexual harassment allegations against Thomas by Anita Hill, a law professor who'd worked with him, was leaked to the media. Televised hearings were reopened. And right there, in the middle of it all, was the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Joe Biden.
You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
The drama captivated America. The accusations against Thomas were lurid, but the Republicans were going to do whatever it took to get Thomas across the line. And in his attempt to run a fair hearing, people started saying that Joe Biden was running a process which was unfair to Anita Hill. The hearings made a huge impression on women around the country. Clarence Thomas ended up being confirmed to the Senate 52-48, and Thomas remains on the U.S. Supreme Court to this day.
This entire proceeding is ended.
Years later, when it was brought up by his opponents in the 2020 primaries, Biden said he regretted the way he ran the confirmation hearing. But back then, he didn't. His ability to compromise with almost everyone was the thing that got him to where he was. Chair of the Judiciary Committee, member of the Foreign Relations Committee, potential presidential candidate. He wasn't going to risk throwing that away to appease his critics. Besides, he had bigger fish to fry. Because less than 2 years after nominating Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court, George H.W. Bush was gone, and his replacement was a very different kind of politician.
This election is about change.
Oh,
change in our party, change in our leadership, change in our nation.
Bill Clinton wasn't your average Democrat. He ran ads attacking Bush for raising taxes. He promised to end welfare as we know it. And he wasn't afraid to call out social issues in America's cities. Joe Biden looked at Bill Clinton, a charismatic young Democrat who many people compared to a Republican, and saw himself. So the seasoned political veteran and energetic young president teamed up.
The other big piece of legislation on Capitol Hill tonight is the crime bill.
And the fear it provokes are crippling our society. The crime bill before Congress gives you a chance to do something about it. A chance to be tough and smart.
The most significant federal effort to deal with violent crime in America that has ever been undertaken.
The 1994 crime bill was one of the most important pieces of legislation of Bill Clinton's presidency, and one of the most controversial. It was the result of years of work by Biden and other leading Democrats, gladly endorsed by Clinton, to address rising crime. In the early 1990s, violent crime rates in the United States were about twice as high as today. The TV news was rife with stories of gang violence, home invasions, and crack cocaine. Americans were scared. Democrats were concerned about crime, and Joe Biden was definitely concerned about crime. In 1989, he criticized George H.W. Bush for not going far enough in the war on drugs.
Quite frankly, the president's plan's not tough enough.
That whole war on
bold
drugs
enough,
was just
or
such a
imaginative
fat
enough to
fucking
meet the
waste.
crisis at hand.
But Republicans had been hammering Democrats as soft on crime for decades. The crime bill was Bill Clinton and Joe Biden's chance to turn the tables. It wasn't even that controversial. I mean, Bernie Sanders voted for it. But in recent years, it's been linked to mass incarceration, especially of racial minorities. It's kind of hard to say if the crime bill did what it was supposed to do. Violent crime peaked in 1991,
it did too much.
a couple of years
is
before
what
it was
did.
even written. But politically, it was a big failure.
This is one of the most profound days in American history.
We didn't do what the people wanted us to do. I must certainly bear
The amount of people incarcerated for just having like the littlest bit of weed is insane. Like it did nothing great.
my share of responsibility, and I accept that.
Republicans now are beginning to talk openly about taking control of the House and the Senate.
Just 2 months after the crime bill was signed into law, the Democrats suffered a massive defeat in the midterm elections. Republicans gained control over both the House and Senate for the first time in more than 40 years. For Joe Biden, it was a reminder that playing nice with Republicans was a risky strategy. And now, as one of the most senior Democrats in Washington, he had a big target on his back. Since he was first elected to the Senate in 1972, Joe Biden had seen off challenges from farmers, businessmen, and prosecutors. None of them got close to the most famous man in Delaware. But in 1996, Biden got a different kind of scare. 2 weeks before Election Day, staffers working for his opponent started asking voters if they knew that Joe Biden had recently sold his house for twice.
Let's see, Max says the crime bill was all about selling criminals to privatize prison systems for profit that created more ways to be arrested too. Crime has gone down globally, not related to their crap. Yeah. Sorry, I was distracted by the next comment. There's so many caps. Yeah, the privatization of the prison system is, I mean, it's essentially like legalized slavery. Like, we still have slavery going on straight up through the prison systems.
Its market value to the executive of a local credit card company. In response, Biden provided the local newspaper with evidence that the House was sold for market value. On Election Day, he won a 5th Senate term with 60% of the vote. End of story, right? Wrong, because his opponent was actually onto something. Biden did sell his house to a credit card company executive. On its own, that wouldn't be much, but the story goes deeper, and it reveals a lot about Joe Biden and where he came from. The executive who bought his house worked for a company called MBNA, and before they were bought by Bank of America in 2006, MBNA was one of America's biggest credit card companies. They were based in Wilmington, Delaware, the place the Bidens moved when Joe was a boy. That was no coincidence, because Delaware is the best place in America to register a business. Don't believe me? 2/3 of the Fortune 500 are incorporated there. There's a building in downtown Wilmington, which is the official legal address for more than 250,000 businesses. Delaware is a great place to register a business because you can do it anonymously and because corporate taxes are ultra low. And companies like MBNA wanted to keep it that way. That's why one of their executives bought Joe Biden's house, an act which just happened to help Joe out of a little financial jam he was in. It's why they donated over $62,000 to Biden for the election campaign. And it's why, just a few months after the election, MBNA hired Hunter Biden, who was fresh out of law school, as an executive. Why did a credit card company do so many favors for Joe Biden? Simple. They expected something in return. Companies like MBNA donate money in the expectation that, when they need it, their guy will come out and support them on a crucial vote, and maybe use their influence to swing a few more votes. And after 25 years in the Senate, there was no one better at twisting arms than Joe Biden. I'm not saying anything illegal happened here. Biden's relationship with MBNA was actually the perfect illustration of how influence works, both in Washington and Delaware. One of the first times people outside of Delaware heard of Biden was when, as a young senator, he appeared on a political chat show talking about campaign finance reform. 25 years later, that same man had found someone to buy his home for a good price and give his son a good job in the process. And MBNA got someone in their corner, all for less than one executive's salary. In 2005, the financial services industry, including MBNA, strongly supported a piece of legislation that made it harder for people to discharge their debts. Republicans introduced the bill, but it took Joe Biden, who had already pushed to reform bankruptcy law in 2000 and 2001, to make it bipartisan. He voted for the final bill in the Senate. It wasn't a good look for middle-class Joe, but if he thought it was a weakness, he didn't show it.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is like, I just wanted like a little bit more of a summary. Like, it's, I don't know. I guess I just want to move on to like the speech. We get it. Fine. His wife died. He has a stutter. Joe Average Biden. He is an average Joe. Okay.
States Joe Biden.
This is the conference for the,
Thank you. Please be
my
seated.
brains go to blank. It's the conference. It's the
Well, good
conference,
evening.
You know.
We just concluded this year's NATO summit, and the consensus among the members was it was a great success. It was especially momentous because it represented
There's
the
no
75th
captions. I'm
year,
sorry, loves.
the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of World War II, the most destructive war in history. The idea was to create an alliance of free and democratic nations that would commit themselves to a compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd all be safer. An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us. Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin invaded Ukraine. Some of the oldest and deepest fears in Europe roared back to life because once again, a murderous madman was on the march. But this time, no one cowered in appeasement.
Thank you for the super chat, Heretical Response. I really appreciate that. I did not see that.
Especially the United States. We collected intelligence that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine months before the invasion. I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence be declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to Asia to help Ukraine defend itself. Many foreign policy experts thought, as Putin amassed Russian forces just 100 miles north of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, but Putin thought it was the mother home of Russia. The capital would fall in less than a week. But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands, and NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit, several heads of states made it a point in their statements to thank the United States and to thank me personally for all that NATO has achieved. NATO is not only stronger, NATO is bigger because we led the charge to bring in Finland and Sweden into the alliance, and it makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me. Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation to honor Article 5. He's already told...
Oh my God. Nobody here cares about Biden. Nobody here cares about Trump either. Shut up, Jerry. Go get a hobby. Go get a vibrator or something. Do something useful with your time. Something. That's what I'm talking about. When I talk about this shit, it's like... People get like... They're like... Trump ain't gonna win! It's like, I don't fight... Like... They say it like it's going to be a surprise. Like, if Trump wins this election, I'm not going to be surprised. It's not going to be shocking. Like, you're going to cry. You're going to cry them liberal tears. Trump 2024. Ah. Like, could you just, I don't know. Like, how many coffees do you have in the morning? Do you smoke crack?
Putin, and I quote, do whatever the hell you want. In fact, the day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius. It was wonderful. Some of you forgot that, but that's exactly what he said. But I made it clear, a strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once.
Dude, take a sip of water.
And that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did, and exactly what we'll continue to do. Now, the future of American policy is up to the American people.
NATO.
This is much more than the political question.
No one gives a shit about NATO.
It's more than that. It's a national security issue. Don't reduce this to the usual testament that people talk about, issues of being a political
tornado.
Campaign. It's far too important. It's about the world we live in for decades to come. Every American must ask herself or himself, is the world safer with NATO? Are you safer? Is your family safer? I believe the American people know. The answer to all those questions is yes. And I believe the American people understand that America is stronger.
The last thing I'm thinking about is fucking NATO. It's like, what, I curl into bed every night and thank God for NATO? Dear Jesus, dear sweet baby Jesus. May God bless NATO.
Stronger because of our alliances. I believe the American consensus from Truman to Reagan to me still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We are an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote. Now let me turn to three other key issues. Just this morning, we had a great economic report
showing inflation is down.
Hey, Ren. Good to see
Overall
you.
prices fell last month. Core inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years. Prices are falling for
Everybody like my live stream immediately.
cars, appliances, and airfares. Grocery prices have fallen since the start of the year. We're going to keep working to take down corporate greed to bring those prices down further. Meanwhile,
not where I'm at
Trump's
anyways.
calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities. And economists tell us that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year. Second, our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working. After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on, because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away. So I took executive action last month. As a consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office. Third, for months, the United States has been working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East.
Yeah,
6
what
weeks
the
ago,
fuck ever.
I laid out a detailed plan in writing. It was endorsed by the UN Security Council.
I wrote it on construction paper, and I used my best crayons.
The G7. That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas. So I sent my team to the region to hammer out the details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close. We're making
Israel
progress.
killed all the fucking
The trend
hostages.
is positive.
Most
And
of
I'm
them.
determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war, which should end now. Let me conclude where I began. We're the United States of America. We are the indispensable nation. Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given
Oh, here we go.
a list
Now
of
we're
people
at
to
the
call on
questions.
here. Reuters,
Pony up.
Jeff Mason.
Mr. President, your political future has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
What the fuck?
Number one. The fact is
The
that
fuck did he just
the
say?
consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about
Did I
the
hear
ticket
that right?
is not unusual.
Hold on. Let me just back that up.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she's not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration
How do you fuck
is
that up
that I
that
think
bad?
I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that
Oh my God.
senators,
I'm sorry. I
Congress-
just had to take a minute to like process that on a human level. Like, He didn't even, like, correct himself or anything. He just kept on going. Jesus Lord. God help
running
us.
for office.
We are so fucked.
Worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now, later in the campaign. So there's a long way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving. And because, look, I got more work to do. We've got more work to finish. There's so much, we've made so much progress. Think about it. Think about where we are economically relative to the rest of the world. Name me a world
We're in a very terrible
with our economy.
What? I think it's contagious. I'm starting to get it. Okay, Skip. I gotta use the bathroom. Hold on. Everybody stay here. Don't go anywhere. Stay here. Okay. And this craziness, I feel like this is... Oh, weird. All fucking flipped around. We ain't got no fucking clue what we're doing right there. There we go. Now let's just spin the disco ball. There. Now the disco ball is spinning for like 2 seconds.
We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million. So things are moving. We got more to go. Working class people still need help. Corporate greed is still at large. Their prices, the corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down, and so I'm optimistic about where things are going. Danny Kemp, AFP.
Take a sip of water.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Tea,
I wanted
something.
to ask you about your, you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today. And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. Officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing in my leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin,
Have
and I
you
said,
heard yourself?
At the very end, I said, Putin. I said, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden, because Biden did the following.
That's
Look,
a little
folks, this is,
self-ingratiating.
Well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time, and find me a world leader who didn't think it was. Next one. Nancy Cordes.
That's like Trump right
CBS.
there.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned there are instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends, supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you spent time thinking about what it would mean for
George
your legacy,
Clooney?
which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
Well, look, I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall, understandably, many of you and many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward, can't do that, it's going to cause inflation, things are going to skyrocket, the debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job. That under my plans so far and what's going to happen in the future if I'm reelected, that things are going to get much better. Our economy is growing. I was determined when I got elected to stop the trickle-down economic theory, that if the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well. My dad was a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to was able to implement as president what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up. That way we grow the economy.
I don't think there's really been much significant
They do
changes
fine.
in it. Like, things are just
Guess
so
what?
steadily getting shitty.
Find me an
shittier.
economist, mainstream economist, who said we haven't done well. What have we not done that isn't working right now? And so we got more.
None
to
of
do.
you
We
have
gotta
done
finish the
well.
job.
Neither you or Trump.
And by the way, I come from
the
the corporate
fuck you
state
all
of the
talking
world.
about?
Delaware
What
has
is
more
your basis of
corporations
comparison
you
if
know,
everybody's just
registered in Delaware than
consistently
every other
fucking
state
shitty?
in the nation combined. I'm not anti-corporate, but corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. Doubled. It's time things get back in order a little bit. It's time, for example, if I'm reelected, we're going to make sure that rents are kept at 5% increase. Corporate rents for apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%. We're going to make a lot of changes that I've been talking about because we're going to continue to grow this economy. And by the way, remember how I got so roundly criticized for being so pro-union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I've been the most pro-union labor president in history. Not a joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry was in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world, send the product over there and import what the product was. And so what did I do? I was told not to go over to Europe, to Asia, including Europe, but Asia. And I remember going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when they finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested, there's over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming into being. None of you thought that would happen. None of you thought that would happen.
I wasn't thinking about that at all.
It's happening. And it's going to grow economies. All through, and by the way, red states and blue states.
Sir, my groceries are still
Manufacturers as much in
expensive.
red states as in blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea that We can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fairer. And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's when the whole economy grows. The poor have a shot, the wealthy do well, but the wealthy got to start paying their taxes.
As a follow-up, sir, you mentioned that your Vice President Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies to have control over their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate, she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning, I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her. Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
He ain't going to be alive much longer. There's no way.
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock.
I don't care about his personal schedule.
If you look at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate.
He just as well go on for like 20 minutes right now about how he had like a bad gas station burrito and it made him sick for 3 days. Like what is happening?
My schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing. And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Someone with thousands of people showing up. And so I just think it's better. I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just got to just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end, I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway,
why is the camera so shaky?
I'm sorry. Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that? And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at a debate stage or somewhere else?
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term, in the near or abroad, into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is, what's the best use of the weaponry he has, and the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten him more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is working. I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't go, how far they should go in. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
bad nights, sir. How can you reassure the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or it's a matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to assure them is the way I assure myself. And that is, am I getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's got more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So if I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None. Who I got here?
What?
Merrick, Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
The elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern. Many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving?
You kind of have.
I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. He'd be a disaster.
That's not what the question
He'd be a
is.
disaster. I mean,
the question is, what would you
I think
tell
he
them
said
to
in one
prepare
of his rallies,
for?
don't hold me to this recently,
if Trump
where NATO, I just
took
learned
American
about
influence
NATO,
out of all
something
that
to that
shit.
effect. Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I tell you from Poland, that worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think that if he wins in Ukraine, he's going to stop in Ukraine, that that's going to be the end of it. And so what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds,
We got plenty of other
that
people.
the European
who would be
alliance
better.
stays strong. You may recall, no one was talking about Finland joining NATO.
I don't know why it's not a matter of urgency for Democrats to pull together somebody better than Biden. Like, are we just fucking around? Like, I'm not a Democrat, so I don't give a shit. But it's like, are you just like fucking around? Like, what's going on? Like, do you just not care? Like, there's so many like better people that could be pulling this shit off. Like, it's just really, I don't know, really baffling. Like, why we got Biden of all people representing the Democratic Party.
I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva. And he was talking about what we should do. We couldn't be in Eastern Europe, etc. And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine. I said, you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true. Probably 5 months later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? In my office. I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon? And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they were already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe I can't recall what he said in public in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together, to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But it expanded. And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it. And by the way, I was able to get 50 other nations, 50, to support Ukraine. 50. And we were able to bring about a coalition of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be.
Most of Gaza is
I've
dead,
convinced
dude.
a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger. David Sanger. Where's it?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Be nice, David.
Oh, random note. Did y'all see that Alec Baldwin got dismissed, I guess? But the armor, I think she took most of the blow. Pretty interesting stuff. If anybody's been keeping up with that whole situation with Alec Baldwin and the movie Rust and that whole shooting thing. Which is, like, so weird. I mean, it's like 2024. Like, do you really need to use a real gun? Anyway, hey, Susan. Susan says, I'm not a fan of Biden in light of support for Israel, though Trump would be worse, but the fact that Biden is the nominee and it's not just simple to remove him and drop someone else in. It should be a matter of urgency. Like, I don't know. We got there. We'll see, though. November is coming upon us.
Mr. President, the NATO declaration that was issued yesterday was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia, and whether or not in a second term you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating. They're getting access to additional. They're not supplying weapons themselves. They're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that she believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we cannot, you have to make clear, China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others.
I mean, it's pretty dismal. Ukraine's going to have to do something pretty drastic to be left alone.
They're not
That's a sad,
going
unfortunate
to
thing about these types of situations.
As a consequence of that,
it's never just
by
about,
getting the
well,
kind of
just hang
investment
tight
they're
and
looking
defend
for.
yourself, you know.
And so, for example,
sometimes you have
we're
to
in a
be,
situation where, and we've
the offense
reestablished direct contact
in order
with
to
China.
have the long-term defense.
After that, remember the balloon, quote unquote, going down, and all of a sudden
Not saying
it came to an
that's
end.
what I think
Well,
should be happening.
we set up a
of
new
course.
mechanism. There's a direct line between she and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems. The issue is that we have to make sure that she
Susan
understands
says Agenda and Project 2025 are the greatest threat we're facing.
for undercutting
Yeah, I would like to talk about
both
Project 2025.
the Pacific
ASAP.
Basin as well as Europe, and as it relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so we, for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really
China? Let's get past this foreign policy stuff.
As
Unless that's all
as
this
well
is
as
about.
help them in as a consequence of that their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and there was I didn't hear any. I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everyone got to talk about it, but we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to, it came as a surprise to some of us.
Or how about screw NATO and we actually get health care? Does this need to be in HD? No. And let's get this playback speed going up a little bit.
How we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from vehicles to weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was, we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues, my European colleagues, is what do we do to increase the capacity of the West, particularly in Europe and Japan, to be able to generate the kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that. It's the same, it's what Russia's trying to figure out. They went to
Hey,
China.
here's a clue. What about
and they didn't get the
healthcare
weapons,
for
but then they went to
Americans?
North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for it to be able to the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need. That was a discussion as well.
President, I'm sure you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look, like I said, I'm dealing with Xi right now and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. And but there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand the generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea...
You tell him.
Putin's got a problem.
Putin is
First
a problem.
Of all,
Putin is a
this
problem.
war
Putin
that he
is
is
a
supposedly have
problem.
won. And by the way, I think, don't hold me to the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage and loss of life. But they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed or wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell to the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And so the idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But
Yeah, Susan, I have a couple of articles up about that. Like, there's plenty of people, like, even like a lot of Democrats, like, wanting him to step down. Let's see. Representative Mike Levin, Brittany Peterson, Eric Sorensen, Scott Peters, Jim Hims, Marie Gluens. Jesus, what is that name? Glusenkamp? All these people. Let's see. President Biden has been an outstanding leader for not only our nation, but for the entire free world. Making this statement is not easy. Levin said, I have deep respect for President Biden's 5+ decades of public service and incredible appreciation for the hard work we've done together these last 3.5 years, but I believe the time has come for President Biden to pass the torch. Yeah, you don't get this kind of, let's see. You don't get this kind of denouncement. I mean, you do a little bit with Republicans about Trump. There's definitely plenty of Republicans who are not down for that. But I find it very strange that there is such push and pressure to have Biden step down. And we're not really seeing that pushing and pressuring for Trump, even though Trump is like, had all that shit with like the felonies, this, that, and the other. Trump, who is a felon, failed businessman, con man, and pussy-grabbing R-wordist. He's a pussy grabber. We don't like that. Could you imagine Biden doing that? Ugh. I mean, imagining Trump doing that is like that too. Anybody. Ugh. Don't grab people's pussies, okay? You heard it from me, folks. You heard it first here. Ask permission before you grab someone's pussy. Let's see. Freshman from Colorado who represents a district that Biden would have won. Blah, 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 blah. Joe Biden saved our country once. I am joining the growing number of people in my district and across the country to ask him to do it again. She said, please pass the torch to one of our many capable Democratic leaders. I mean, yeah. Just saying. Both of them should step down. We should start over. We should have them fight to the death. let's just embrace the chaos. Let's just do the old pit with the lions again. Let's see. Greg Stanton says the Democratic Party must have a nominee who can effectively make the case against Trump and have the confidence of the American people to handle the rigors of the hardest job on the planet for the next 4 years. For the sake of American democracy and to continue to make progress on our shared priorities, I believe it is time for President to step aside as our nominee. Let's see. Brad Schneider says, I love President Biden. I am forever grateful for his leadership and service to our nation. The time has come, however, for President Biden to heroically pass the torch. Everybody's like, pass the torch, pass the torch. Pass the torch. Let's see. I understand why, Peter Welsh said, I understand why President Biden wants to run. He saved us from Donald Trump once and wants to do it again. But he needs to reassess whether he is the best candidate to do so. In my point of view, he is not. For the good of the country, I'm calling on President Biden to withdraw from the race. Didn't George Clooney say something? Let's see. George Clooney on Biden. Did he ask him to step down? I don't know how to spell George, apparently. Let's see. But we need a new nominee. Let's see. This is written by George Clooney. Okay, this whole damn thing is written by George Clooney. I am a lifelong Democrat. Damn it. Damn it. No, I don't want to subscribe. Stupid paywalls. Stupid paywalls. Do we get to read that somewhere else, or is that the only thing? calls for Biden to drop out. Save us, George Clooney. George Clooney for president now. I don't think we're going to be able to read it. Anyways, it's devastating to say it, but Joe Biden and I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010, okay? He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. The June event was a star-studded fundraiser in Los Angeles featuring former President Barack Obama, actress Julia Roberts, and comedy Jimmy Kimmel. The evening raised more than $30 million for Biden and his larger political operation. Biden's fumbling debate for performance opposite former President Donald Trump was on June 27th, nearly 2 weeks after the fundraiser in Los Angeles. Clooney's OPD was published Wednesday, nearly 2 weeks after the disastrous debate. The same day, former House Nancy Pelosi refused to explicitly endorse Biden as a nominee. Yeah, she's done with it. Clooney says, we're not going to win in November with this president. On top of that, he won't win the House. We're going to lose the Senate. This isn't only my opinion. This is the opinion of every senator and Congress member and governor that I've spoken with in private. Every single one, irrespective of what he or she is saying publicly. Reaching for comment, a Biden campaign spokesman pointed out to CSNBC to the president's remarkings insisted that he will stay in the right. Yeah, Biden's being stubborn. He's like, I'm going to stay. So as Biden digs in, the delicate question of how to convince him to abandon the race is vexing Democrats on Capitol Hill. Clooney implored Democratic leaders like Pelosi asked the president to stand down. Yeah. Top Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, and senators, representatives, and other candidates who are face losing in November need to ask the president to voluntarily step aside. Let's see. Clooney says, as Democrats, we collectively hold our breath to turn down the volume whenever we see the president who we respect walk off Air Force One or walk back to a mic to answer an unscripted question. Dang, that's brutal. Okay. I'm not saying Biden should step down. I just very much understand why people are saying it. At this point, I think I don't know. It's pretty, I think there definitely needs to be a different Democratic, person there. However, it's almost, I feel like it's kind of too late. You just as well keep running with this.
One thing for certain, if we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping in Ukraine. I recommend, I know you know this because you've written about it.
But it is pretty dismal, because even this.
After they moved in, what it was all about.
Clooney is emotionally panicking.
Anyway, read what his objective is. And
that is a little bit odd. I think, why is George Clooney everybody, George Clooney is picking apart Biden way more than Trump at this point. Kind of odd.
I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including.
Probably because Democrats are feeling extremely powerless right now. And typically in situations where people feel powerless, they'll tend to turn blame inward in-house.
Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons in space. That didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific area more than anyone else has. We just put together today, I asked our NATO allies that we bring on the group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand.
Oh, bet your ass Project 2025 shit is going to be implemented. It already has started. It's going. It's in there. It's being started. It's in effect. Just you wait. I saw something funny and I totally agree. It's interesting how conspiracy theorists are very quiet about Project 2025. Little odd, don't you think? Yeah, Project 2025 is incredibly concerning. It's got many heinous things they literally have a paragraph that equates like queer people to pornography. They're like, queer people, pornography, same thing. We're gonna eradicate that. Anybody who makes pornography, immediately jailed, imprisoned, executed. You know.
New Zealand, Japan.
It's gonna be weird.
Australia. I already mentioned Australia, and I met twice now. I think with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations, and we've slowed down what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach, but there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly.
Christopher Smith says, what is Project 2025? Project 2025 is something that has been put together by the Heritage Foundation and is like pretty much an entire political plan. Like if Trump's elected, it's all these political plans to like make it so he's essentially what is it? Like King Trump, you know, like dictatorship. Like it's going to give him like way more power, pretty much being able to stay leader as long as he wants. And it's all not just that, but it's all to establish specifically a lifestyle politically, like for all Republicans, like conservative Republicans, so like particular like Christian conservatives. So it's essentially like a plan for Christian fascism to be implemented. It is the Christian fascist plan, like essentially. You can read Project 2025. It's on the internet. I think it's like project2025.com. It's out there in the open. It's not like it's not like a secret. It's actually out in the open. But like people are barely now just like starting to pay attention about it. Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, Mark says project2025.org. Yeah, it's a 900-page thing. Me, Susan, Mark, and Philip, we're trying to get together to talk about it because it's that big of a deal. Because we need like a serious like Neogenian like sit down about it. Hi, Brent. Yeah, Zephyr, right. Because regulating sex, drugs is totally a winning strategy, and it totally has worked, yeah. The prohibition, perfect.
Sam from NPR.
That went very well.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I have changed anything that's
Honestly,
happening with
we need
Israel
an age
and
cap.
the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement.
We need an age cap
The
on
answer is,
being
you recall,
president.
from the very beginning, I immediately went to Israel, but I also
I think you have to be like 35 to run for president. Well, like you can't be any older than like.
I met with most
like
of the Arab
55.
leaders
Like
to try to
that's
get a
it.
consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into
it's so
into
hot. I
the
need
Gaza
some
Strip.
water.
And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative. Number one, the Israeli War Cabinet. I've been dealing with Israel since Golda Meir. Some of the reporters around here come here all the time have heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I sat across from her at her desk, and her assistant was Rabin sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well, and I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of Israel. And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the plan I put together was it would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to, particularly from Egypt all the way to Saudi Arabia, to be in a position where they would cooperate in the transition so that they could keep the peace in Gaza without Israeli forces staying in Gaza. The question has been from the beginning, what's the day after in Gaza? And the day after in Gaza has to be, the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel in the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to get in and out as rapidly as you can, all that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I put forward have not succeeded as well, like the port reattached from Cyprus. I was hopeful that would be more successul. But
I
that's
mean,
why
why
when
would
I
that
went
be
to Israel
successful?
immediately after the massacres that occurred at the hands of Hamas, the one thing I said to the Israelis, and I met with the War Cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job. You may recall I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed to the occupation and trying to unite Afghanistan. Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on, because it was not in our. No one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys, Sinwar and company. And all this criticism about I wouldn't provide when the weapons they needed. I'm not providing 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel.
Gaza's death toll is
so
fucking sky high. It's sickening.
I was able to unite the Arab nations
there's
as well
even people left.
as well as Europe, and nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible lesson to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things
like
in retrospect
poor
I wish I had
people.
been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction on the West Bank from the Palestinians about Hamas. Hamas is not popular now. And so there's a lot of moving parts. I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can toward a ceasefire, and get those. And by the way, look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again, they're better than a lot of other people here too. But anyway.
Bridge candidacy in 2020. You referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And I think, I won't put words in anybody's mouth, most presidential historians give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get major pieces of legislation passed. And what I realized was my long time in the Senate had equipped me to have the wisdom of how to deal with the Congress, to get things done. We got more major legislation passed that no one thought would happen.
Oh yeah, I sped it up, and honestly, I should have doubled the speed from the get-go. But it's easier to listen to him because you can get through his sentence faster.
If we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did, and we just moved things along. Anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Haley Bull, Scripps. Or no, Josh Weingrove, I'm sorry. Was the next one. I'll do two more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats on the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear, but they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about how the next week or two goes would inform your...
Am I using that way?
Are you
Ugh, it's so nauseating. So let's see. Let's look at this Project 2025 in 8 minutes. Yeah, me, Susan, and the Neogenian crew, we want to get together and talk about this. I would like to do that ASAP.
Have you heard about Project 2025? Hey, it's Dan Zimmerman and welcome back to Illustrate to Educate. In this video, we'll dive into everything you need to know about Project 2025, including 5 criticisms. Remember, if you disagree with Project 2025 or its criticisms, please don't dislike the video, but instead respectfully comment your thoughts below. Project 2025, led by the Heritage Foundation, is a comprehensive initiative designed to prepare for a potential conservative administration starting in January 2025. It is structured around 4 main pillars: policy development, personnel recruitment, training, and strategic planning for the early days of the new administration. Here's a more detailed breakdown of each component. First, let's look at the policy agenda. The Conservative Promise is a detailed policy guide that provides specific recommendations for governing major federal agencies. The guide encompasses conservative solutions to various issues, including economic policies, health,
which they economically they're with the or not just economic, with environment stuff. That just popped into my head. With the environmental stuff, they're there's no such thing as global warming. We're just gonna keep burning coal and using oil. It's just fine. We're gonna stop all funding to any other sources of resources of energy.
Care, education, and national security. It is intended to serve as a blueprint for the next conservative administration, ensuring that key conservative values and strategies are implemented effectively from the outset. The second pillar is the personnel database. Project 2025 includes a comprehensive personnel database aimed at identifying and vetting potential appointees for various positions within the federal government. This database seeks to ensure that a future conservative administration has a pool of qualified, ideologically aligned individuals ready to fill key roles. The recruitment efforts span across different sectors and backgrounds, targeting experienced professionals who can execute the administration's agenda efficiently. The third part is the training through the Presidential Administration Academy. To prepare the identified personnel for their roles, Project 2025 has established the Presidential Administration Academy. This academy offers a range of training programs including workshops, seminars, online courses, and mentorship from former administration officials. The training is designed to equip future administrators with the necessary skills and knowledge to implement conservative policies.
We're going to train you to be the candidate we like. Like, we're not going to just allow somebody to develop their own thoughts and ideas. We're going to teach you what to think. Like,
policies effectively.
It's scary.
Fourth is the 180-day playbook. The 180-day playbook is a strategic document outlining the immediate actions to be taken by the new administration within the first 180 days. This playbook is crafted to enable swift policy reversals and the implementation of conservative priorities, ensuring a smooth and impactful start. It includes specific actions for various departments and agencies, focusing on undoing the policies of the previous administration and setting the stage for long-term conservative governance. Now let's talk about the coalition and organizational structure. Project 2025 is supported by a coalition of over 100 conservative organizations, including think tanks, advocacy groups, and academic institutions.
And a lot of support.
This broad coalition brings together diverse expertise and resources to support the project's goal.
Like, if you guys haven't heard about this before, like, I'm telling you, it's not just like a little like plan. It's like a very, very strategic, detailed plan of action that they're just foaming at the mouth to get started, which they have. Some of these things are being put into place.
Notable participants include former officials from the Trump administration who contribute their experience and insights to the project. There are specific policy focus areas in Project 2025. Project 2025 proposes significant changes to federal policies on reproductive.
Yeah, no abortion, no contraceptives, and they even have descriptions of talking about like if it's not sex for procreational purposes, like, you don't have it. Like, it's illegal, like, pretty much. Like, there's no recreational sex, there's no such thing, ban it entirely. I'm sorry, your experience, like, I'm sorry to conservatives that their experience of sex is so horrible that they're like, you know what, we don't need it, ban it. It's like, some of us are good at sex, like, some of us actually enjoy it because we do it well.
These include removing references to abortion from federal laws and regulations, reversing the approval of abortion pills, and defunding clinics that provide abortion or contraception services. The initiative also aims to reinstate the Comstock Act to ban mail-order abortions and reshape Medicaid to avoid funding reproductive health care services that include abortion. Another focus area is cultural and social issues. The project emphasizes the restoration of traditional family values and religious principles.
They directly they talk about trans people and like gay people and stuff like that. They directly equate queer people and like trans people to pornography. They make that synonymous. They're like, trans people is pornography. We can't have that. Like, it's gonna be outlawed. Like, anybody who's like gender fluid, non-binary, whatever, like, we'll all be re-educated and be forced to live out a different life.
This includes opposing policies perceived as supporting cultural Marxism and promoting a pro-life agenda. It advocates for policies that support the nuclear family, religious liberty, and traditional gender roles. There's also the leadership of Project 2025, which is directed by Paul Dans, a former chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management during the Trump administration, with Spencer Sherteen serving as associate director. Both bring extensive experience from their previous roles in government, contributing to the strategic planning and execution of the project. So what are the criticisms of Project 2025? Project 2025 has sparked significant criticism from various sources. Critics argue that the project embodies a comprehensive plan to centralize executive power, erode democratic norms, and enforce a far-right agenda on American governance and society. Let's take a look at 5 specific criticisms in more detail. First is the centralization of executive power. One major criticism is that Project 2025 seeks to expand presidential control over the federal bureaucracy. The plan includes reviving the Schedule F classification, which would allow the president to replace thousands of civil service employees with political appointees loyal to the administration. Critics argue this would undermine the nonpartisan nature of the civil service and politicize federal agencies, making them tools of the executive branch rather than independent entities. Second is the attack on democratic institutions. Critics highlight that Project 2025's blueprint includes proposals to dismantle or weaken key democratic institutions. This includes plans to defund the Department of Justice and dismantle the FBI and other agencies that could act as checks on presidential power. Such moves are seen as efforts to undermine the rule of law and enable the executive branch to operate with little oversight or accountability. Third, the project also faces criticism for its potential use of government power to target political opponents and critics. There are fears that it would enable the executive to pursue legal action against political adversaries and critical media outlets, drawing parallels to authoritarian regimes where dissent is suppressed through state mechanisms. The fourth criticism is the social and cultural agenda. Project 2025's policy agenda includes strong positions on social issues, promoting conservative values that critics argue could roll back rights and protections for various groups. The document outlines plans to restrict LGBT.
All of that stuff, all of the, racism, teaching about, racism and stuff in America, like, all of that will be, like, absolutely no. So pretty much anything they deem as woke, like, all woke shit out, it's gonna be illegal. No LGBTQ rights. Yeah, like, we're gonna be, like, straight up, like, either re-educated or what they would quote and call, like, I'm thinking of, like, what they do in China, where they re-educate people, but it's essentially just brainwash people. The idea of removing women's rights to vote being... That's why it's so odd, like, on my last stream, when I mentioned, like, you can bet your ass they're coming out of interracial marriage, too. And people got really upset that I said that. They're like, you can't say that! And, like, there was the one guy who's like, I reported you several times. It's like, have you seen this shit? Like, everything's gonna roll back.
Q+ rights, enforce strict anti-abortion measures, and integrate Christian nationalist principles into government policy. This agenda has raised concerns about...
I'm proud to be an American.
About the erosion of civil liberties and the imposition of a particular...
Yeah, debanning, there many places, or this kind of mentality, these people want to ban no-fault divorce, meaning it'll be illegal to get divorced unless it's very obvious that the husband is, like, a psycho or something, or, like, it's necessary, but, like, no-fault divorce, like, that's gonna be banned. So, like, yeah, it'll essentially, like, turn ladies into slaves. Like, you'll just be stuck.
Religious and ideological framework on the entire nation. Lastly is the environmental and climate policy rollbacks. The project's stance on environmental regulations is contentious. It proposes significant rollbacks of climate policies, which critics argue would have detrimental effects on efforts to combat climate change and protect the environment. This aspect of the plan is seen as catering to business interests at the expense of long-term ecological sustainability. Did you find this video about Project 2025 to be helpful?
Thank you.
Remember not to dislike the video, but rather like the video.
I'm gonna like it. Like it. Like, what are some people saying? I'm a Republican and I have traditional values. However, I don't like people being forced to align with my beliefs. Okay. This is the first time in my life I have genuinely felt afraid for digging deeper and looking into what I initially thought was just a sensationalized news story. Typically, I don't trust the content in the news to be accurate, and even less so for YouTube videos, yet the reality of what is being actively laid out in Project 2025 only just sunk in after watching the video. This is horrifying. Thank you for creating this. Yeah. See, I don't want the Heritage Foundation in charge of any part of my life. You and me both. Oh, Brent, don't be... Brent, that's not nice. Let's see, I just copied the link and titled shared all my friends and family. Thank you. Let's see, retired defense contractor here. We never even thought of making a decision based on politics. Our oath is to the country, not a political party. Yeah, we need something that's neutral. Yeah, the ones who shout freedom the most sure don't like freedom for all. Yeah, they like the freedom to make the world exactly how they think it should be. Let's see. Getting rid of the people with different ideological beliefs and policy, destroying the checks and balances of the three branches of the U.S. government to enforce your will upon others, and recruiting an army of ideological soldiers that will help implement your beliefs and policies. Where have we seen this before? We've seen it in history pretty certainly. It just wasn't Christian. It was a little bit. Ban contraceptives? Yep. All of them. You're going to have to go back to eating herbs for your birth control. Yeah, Mark. Germany, 1930s. Exactly. That's awesome, Bridget. Let's see. Project 2025. It's a really big document, though. Like, it's a 900-page document. It's a long read. It's not enough for the conservatives to win elections. If we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry out this agenda out day one of the next conservative administration. This is the goal of the 2025 Presidential Transitional Project. And you can go up here and look at their policy and just read all of that. It's a lot. Their database of all the political people they want to put in positions that shouldn't be run by people who are political. Yeah, no Department of Housing, fuck that shit. $180-day playbook. It's so weird to have this thing and then just put it on a website and people are like, okay. So they are specifically wanting to build a conservative paradigm for America, a very authoritative Christian and driven society with all the traditional hetero roles. Boys are boys, girls are girls, nobody's gay, everyone's in a family, nobody gets divorced. It's pretty crazy, but again, I'll be covering this with the rest of the Neogenian crew. Think American Taliban? Oh, totally. Yeah, this is Handmaid's Tale shit for sure. That's not just that's not just a fun story. That's a thing. Log in for what? agriculture, education. Oh, did something download? You. Now it's on my computer. This is just a lot to read. Like, it takes a lot of time to read their things, but... And afterward connotes finality, but onward signals that, yeah. Onward! Onward is their catchphrase for shit starting. But anyways, that's a fun note to leave on. Let's see, it's been 2 hours. Yeah, let's call it a night. By the way, tomorrow is Saturday, and I will do a little bit of gaming tomorrow, and we'll start pretty early in the day, like probably about 3 p.m. Pacific time. So it's just going to be some fun time to chill and hang out. Not quite exactly sure what I'm going to play yet, but yeah, tomorrow we'll do a little bit of gaming. So if you're down to relax and stuff and want to hang out with me and do something fun, that would be cool. Onward, that's from like Onward Christian Soldier. Onward Christian Soldiers. I think that's how that goes. So they want to recombine church and state. Yeah. Oh yeah, this is very unconstitutional, honestly, this idea. But yeah, straight up, Christopher. Yes, gaming tomorrow. Anyways, thank you all so much for joining me tonight, and I will see you tomorrow if you guys want to hang out a little bit then. And yeah, that'll be that. Bridget says, Jan, did you know there's an class action lawsuit for people? Yeah, I think there's been several. There's a ton of lawsuits against the Mormon Church, but conveniently, very interesting that the church's leadership is made up of primarily lawyers and businessmen, so they're doing just fine. They got a great lawyer team. But no, that doesn't surprise me. There's been many lawsuits against the church. I don't know if that's a good thing, Brent. Brent's like, does anyone else fall asleep during gaming? Because there's no meditation video that gets me to sleep faster than Jan's voice playing a video game. Like my brother next. Oh, okay. That's sweet. I get that. I like watching gamers too. I like watching gamers play. It's kind of fun. Thank you so much to our beautiful moderators for coming tonight. Susan and Mark and Cassie. Thank you for the super chats. Heretical Response dropped one. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. And we'll see you tomorrow if we see you tomorrow. So have a good night. Take care of yourself. Be well. And we'll talk to you later, all right? Okay. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Goodbye.